Uh, Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, everybody. My name is Kalle Lyytinen. I'm welcoming you to this AACSB MaCuDE IS curriculum webinar. This is a joint event and meeting together with the AIS 2021 or 2020 curriculum and AACSB MaCuDE project. We are going to organize this event as follows. I'm going to say a few words in the start about the purpose of the meeting and the start of and the aims of this event. And after that, we will talk about the relationship between this IAS 2020 curriculum and MaCuDE project and why we are organizing this event. This will be organized, given by Heikki, Topi. And then we will give a short presentation of the MaCuDE project and its current interim report on the how big data and the AI artificial intelligence techniques are being used in curricula across the globe. And then we will hear a summary of the IAS 2020 curriculum and how it relates to the challenges specified by the MaCuDE project. This will be given by Hannu Salmela and Leidig from the AIS curriculum. And at the end, we will have some discussion and participant feedback organized by Leidig and Heikki, Topi. Before we go further, I just also want to recognize the panel and the people who are here. First of all, we have Bridget from the AIS office. Then we will have Leidig from the Grand Valley State University. He represents the AIS ACM curriculum on the IS. Then we have Hannu Salmela from the Turku University, Finland, also from the AIS ACM curriculum, IS curriculum. And then we have also Heikki Topi, who is the Vice President of Education of the AIS and also the co-chair of the MaCuDE project with me. And as I said, my name is Kalle Lyytinen and I come from Case Western Reserve University. And finally, excuse me, sir. I am deeply sorry about this. These are the outcomes of the running meetings at home. We have some window washers and they just left. And they have to sort of say that they are leaving. No, and then we will finally Jing Tang, who is from the Rochester Institute of Technology, and she is the coordinator for the AI. And the next step in this event is that Heikki will be saying a few words about the AIS and MaCuDE interactions and what we are going to do next. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Kalle. And it is just a real pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. And before I go to the IS 2020 and MaCuDE relationship, I just also wanted to emphasize our interest in making this event as interactive as possible. As a webinar, the primary mechanisms for all the audience members to participate and to contribute to this are the Q&A function in the webinar and the chat. And if possible, we would like and ask you to use the Q&A function that helps us to organize the questions and to make sure that all of them are answered and that your contributions are clearly seen and heard. And as Kalle mentioned, towards the end of the session, we have 30 minutes or so, a time dedicated to your comments on critical important questions related to both of these initiatives. Okay, so let me move forward to the question about IS 2020 and MaCuDE project and their relationship. IS 2020 is a project that was just completed after several years of work, and today it's actually wonderful. This is a wonderful opportunity to congratulate Hannu and Paul and the entire IS 2020 task force for the approval of the IS 2020 project by both the AIS Council in March and the ACM Education Board in late January. Right now, the project deliverable, the final report, is still in the process of final copy editing and proofreading, but will be available for everybody very soon. But congratulations, Hannu and Paul, excellent work. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation was that we can collectively as a community celebrate the completion of this important document. And that brings us to the one of the differences between the MaCuDE project and the IS 2020 project. IS 2020 is part of a long tradition of information systems curriculum recommendations that really have started already from 1970s, and since that we have had multiple iterations both at the undergrad and at the graduate level, typically prepared and published in collaboration between AIS, ACM, and also EDSIC, bringing together multiple dimensions and aspects of the IS community. The MaCuDE project is a one-time initiative that focuses on business schools primarily, and it is organized by AACSB. And it explores management education, management curricula for the digital era, as the name says. And so that brings us to the second difference between these projects. IS 2020 focuses on undergraduate degree programs. It was the undergraduate curriculum and is the undergraduate curriculum recommendation, whereas the MaCuDE addresses all program types at all levels. Also, IS 2020, as intended, is solely focused on information systems as a discipline, whereas MaCuDE really has a broader target, management education as a whole. And the project, the MaCuDE project, consists of 9 disciplinary task forces, one of which is IS specific. And Kalle and I are co-chairing the IS task force, Kalle as the leader of the project. So this gives us a really interesting intersection between these two curriculum projects. The key point here is, and it's really important to set the stage already at the beginning, is to point out the benefits that both projects have reached through this collaboration. IS 2020 has provided, since the beginning of the MaCuDE effort, this very recently updated and up to this point an evolving community endorsed view of undergraduate degree programs in information systems. And together with the most recent graduate level recommendation, IS 2016, IS 2020 has given clear, strong guidance for the MaCuDE project regarding the current status and the future perspectives on IS education. It's been a wonderful resource already throughout the whole process when both projects have been working towards their deliverables at the same time. And since the beginning of the MaCuDE project, we have had the fortune of working together with IS 2020 leadership, which has given the MaCuDE project a really important contextual perspective for IS 2020 and for MaCuDE regarding the whole area of business as a domain of interest for the information systems curriculum. And MaCuDE really provides IS curriculum developers, including the IS 2020 project, a better understanding of how other business disciplines view the role of IT-based capabilities. And that has given then us collectively an opportunity to think about the reframing of threats and opportunities for the whole IS discipline and IS education as a whole. And these are questions that we are exploring today. So great opportunities for collaboration and very fruitful work together already. And so it's a real pleasure to have both of these projects today together at the same webinar. Very good. So now I would like to ask Kalle to continue with a segment on the MaCuDE project, its past, and a few words about the future too. And I will stop sharing my screen so that you can switch yours. Okay, Kalle, it's all yours.
Cal, you need to unmute, please.
Yes, Heikki already noted that what the MaCuDE project is about. It is trying to address the challenges of digital era for the management education, and it is organized by the AACSB, which is one of the leading business school associations in the world, and runs most of the well-established accreditation activities for the business schools. It is run at from the Stevens Institute of Technology, and it is also funded by the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it provides some additional support. And it covers all disciplinary areas of business schools. So there's a disciplinary group for information systems, strategy, finance, accounting, general management, and so forth. Moreover, they have two special cross-disciplinary groups, where one looks at the future of the work, and the other one looks at especially the digital capability challenges. This project is organized in 3 phases. The first phase we have just finished, which is the evaluation of the state of the educational programs in each area. And there is a status report which has been also shared, and the link for that report has been shared across the AIS world. It is currently actually also under review in communications of the AIS, and we hope to be able to publish in the fall issue of that journal. So it will, and if you want to have it, you can contact me or Heikki, and we will send you the link or the actual report. We have just started the next phase, which is the industry practice phase. We will actually try to figure out what the needs of the industry are for especially big data and machine learning capabilities and related aspects as it comes to the information systems education. And this will run until the end of the summer. And the third phase, which will be running the next fall, will be putting these 2 aspects together, the status of the current education in these areas and the needs, and providing some guidelines. Our work, we view it as complementary towards that of the curriculum work, in the sense that we will be writing not curriculum as such, but we will be writing requirements for the future curriculum development. And that has been discussed also together with the AIS curriculum committee. So the next one is going to be the status of the IS task force. And before that, just a note, we have also organized an advisory committee, which has two representatives from the Europe, Jan van Brocke from University of Liechtenstein, and also Helmut Kruzmar from Technical University of Munich. We have two representatives from the North America, Ramesh Venkataraman from Indiana University and Joe Valacic, and two from the Pacific Rim area, which is Mary Tate from University of Wellington and Bernard Tan from National University of Singapore. Some of these are now in parentheses because they have just actually resigned from the work of the committee because of some other challenges. So what is I'm going to focus on the results from the first view, which has relevance for the curriculum work, which was to evaluate the status of the big data and machine learning capabilities, education across all different information systems, disciplinary levels, from undergraduate to master's levels and so forth. And this was done through multiple surveys. We collected data from the MaCuDE task force. We have about representatives from about 30 business schools as part of the committee. We also used the mailing list of AIS Education Committee and Council to get additional feedback from AIS actives and representatives. And we also sent a separate requests for responses to the questionnaire for the highly ranked schools and programs in all AIS regions. And we have also used MIS Academic Leadership Conference mailing list, which covers all major IS department heads to collect additional data. We have to note, however, that this data collection appeared to have significantly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The response rate wasn't very high. You can see that we got data from the 22 universities, which covered 70 undergraduate programs, 37 programs. So it's a relatively small number of responses if you look at, and I would say that the number of universities and programs which offer IS curricula related education is certainly in hundreds globally. So in that regard, this seem to be representing a highly selective sample, which is probably those who care about this topic or who are active on this topic. So it may be reflecting where the field is going currently. So we also did an analysis that in which areas some of these topics are covered. And most of them are in big data, and other topics are currently covered in data information and content type of management courses, some in ethics and use and implications for society, and some in IS management and strategy. But there is no separate specific courses for these topics currently in the curricula. They are sort of spread across all these different fields. And if we think that this is going to be a really significant, important topic and area of education, there's this threat of fragmentation and lack of focus and really not catering for this. And this was one of the reasons we wanted to organize this event and have also collaborated with the curriculum committee. So in mostly analytics, big data and data science were included in the data and information management area. If you get the report, there's much more detailed analysis what those typically covered. These were database related aspects. There were some covered also R, Hadoop, or database related programming or related analytics things. AI machine learning is not yet included as a set of technologies which are covered, but some of the issues related to those are covered in a number of other categories like ethics and so forth. There's also a general tendency now, which probably will Hannu and Paul will point out, that there's actually a pendulum is moving back. That security and programming and related standards demonstrates that there's an increased focus on technical competencies even in the undergraduate education. And there's also increased importance of ethical issues and implication. Data privacy being one of them, but the other one is also the ethical issues surrounding machine learning and related to the potential for biases and other things like automation effects. But overall, I think that there was also several responses from the questionnaire and related discussions that the community felt that they would benefit from a more collective effort to create resources for these courses and also at both undergraduate and graduate levels. And this is also why we are having this meeting today. Other observations, and you will hear about the report on 2020 curriculum, but we have a relatively strong alignment, at least in some level of needs with regard to the earlier curriculum work, especially the 2010, which is already a relatively flexible framework. Cybersecurity as such is an important emerging topic, although it's outside the area of MaCuDE as such. If you want to see courses on analytics and related aspects and how to use data for analytical purposes and engage in related projects, these are only exist currently in specialized programs, not in undergraduate or related curricula. So there are no courses on AI machine learning and few programs that have AI machine learning available as an undergraduate elective, but there are some. At the same time, we can see that there's a large and increasing number of analytics programs offered by IS departments. They typically are master in business analytics or something similar. And many times the IS department is the responsible department for this department, but it can also vary depending on the university. Sometimes it's in marketing, sometimes it's in operations, and sometimes it's some type of collaboration between several departments. And we also noted that at least one analytics program related course is included in about 30% of non-analytics programs, which deal with IS master type of topics. So it is becoming also more common across all IS master level education. AI machine learning is not included in the core, and only a handful of courses offer specialized AI machine learning types of courses, even at the master's level. Another interesting note is that instead of talking any more about information systems, a lot of programs start with the moniker digital, which seems to be a common trend across these. It's probably more selling the title than information systems. A few general observations. The first one is that we note the limitations, that the broader analysis of existing programs would have been helpful. But given the pandemic, it was very difficult to convince programs to respond. Many of the leaders had other much more important things to consider at this time. Another one is that we had difficulty in comparing the variation and what leads to that variation, because we didn't have a detailed understanding of the expected graduate competencies and undergraduate competencies across context. Many of these programs are not only offered in business schools, many of them are offered in specialized schools in computing. Sometimes they're offered as a part of engineering schools and so forth, especially in Europe and some other places. So that clearly influences the proportion to what extent these topics are covered. As I now noticed, this need for data analytics and machine learning things have only very modest coverage currently. And at the same time, at the graduate level, these topics are growing rapidly, and they will probably become required courses or mainstream courses in a few years. If you look at this trend, we could also say that most likely some of this will dribble down to undergraduate education later. There seems to be certain time lags how certain topics are covered. Now, an interesting and important aspect, which we should probably also discuss at the discussion at the end, but which also emerged during these discussions, especially with our advisory reports and a couple of the seminars which we run around these findings, was that first of all, this field of big data analytics and AI is increasingly crowded in business school. Examples of these trends are that a lot of accounting, finance, operations, and even marketing school programs currently offer programming or may even require programming as their basic skills. So they have Python programming courses, they may have also courses on R, and they may also have certain limited aspects of the data management, especially SQL, Hadoop type of skills as part of their analytics courses. So they are in a way enroaching to the topics which used to be solely allocated for the information systems undergraduates. So what is the specific role of the information systems program? It requires much more careful thinking in the future. And some of the issues which we have noted is that the only discipline which really cares about integrating analytics, big data, and these types of machine learning capabilities into organizational systems in real settings and delivering related services is information systems. We are the only one which have the end-to-end focus from the requirements or ideas of these programs into delivering related systems and services. For example, marketing or others assume that the data is somewhere available. It just by magically emerges from somewhere. So managing, integrating, and designing these types of AI and big data systems and capabilities is one the key element and value added which these programs and information systems discipline can deliver. And the other one is the key focus on managing organizational data and information. None of the other disciplines have a real interest in doing that or related functions because it's a cross-functional challenge in most organizations. And that's why we think that the opportunity for adding new value by the IS discipline and also IS curricula lies in the future in providing a new type of education in business schools. Just a few, one point about this next phase. We are currently carrying this out the next phase. So we are sampling like chief technology officers, big data, AI, team leaders, heads of development, HR and people who hire undergraduates or graduates for programs and consultants in big data space. And we have currently about actually more than that, about 30, 40 people across the globe which have promised to be interviewed. And we strive for the variety and quality of informants. And we have also people from Europe. And we also currently working to get people from the Pacific Rim also to participate in this. And we are actually collecting this data for those who are interested in the sort of North American research practices. That we have IRB for this, so we are going to actually use this data to write an article out of it and publish it later on when the data is collected. That's all. So I'll leave the word now to Paul and Hannu.
Okay, thank you, Kalle. Let me share my screen and hopefully everyone will be seeing this correctly. And so let me know if you're seeing the entire presentation this time. All right, very good. So as both Heikki and Kalle have mentioned, the IS 2020 report that we just released focused solely on the IS curriculum for undergraduate programs. And it is interesting, and I think this webinar helps put it in perspective of how it's one piece of the puzzle, along with the MSIS 2016 and other reports that try to put information systems in a larger perspective. So this screen shows that there has been an obvious continual process of trying to keep the IS curriculum relative to the times and the demands that they're working in. And as Heikki had mentioned, this has been an ongoing effort for since the 70s. And in his humble way, Heikki didn't mention that he was very involved in many of those and was the primary author of IS 2010. One name that you'll see here who has been on every one of these efforts was Jay Nunemaker from Arizona, who was also on the IS 2020, and it was the exploratory task force. So just like our graphics on the left try to represent, not only is technology changing, the demands for business, the demands for organizations' needs of how we integrate and use technology for business solutions have demanded a different focus. And so that's what we've tried to do in this effort. So in the next few minutes, what Hannu and I will do is to give you some of the key principles or our marching orders that we had for this task force, the schedule that we followed, and then I will provide hopefully a brief overview of what is in our report. And then Hannu will put into context maybe the connections to MSIS for the master's graduate programs and how this can fit into and help support the efforts of MaCuDE. Just very quickly, we had equal representatives from the Association of Computing Machinery, ACM, and AIS, along with the president of ISCAP EDSIG, who had also been part of many of these efforts. I'll back up and just make one statement. You'll notice that we tried to do some diligence on making sure that we had representatives from each of the regions of AIS and to get a global perspective. And we tried to make sure that we included each of those. So Heikki and others recognized several years ago that perhaps it was time to review how adequate the IS 2010 was meeting the needs of IS programs, whether in business schools or in other academic units. That was one of the goals of IS 2010, was to make it flexible enough so that it could be used in different structures. And so then after a decade, it was, how well is it doing that? And so a task force was formed with led by G.J. DeVried down at South Florida, Aya Karsten from Finland, and Jay Nunemaker, as I mentioned, and myself, came up with these marching orders, if you will. What are the principles that a task force should use? And what we wanted to make sure was not only that it made sure we had a global perspective with a different type of curricula around the world, but that we wanted to focus on producing competent graduates, that we didn't want to focus as much on what should be delivered to the graduates, but on their competency when they exited our programs. In order to do that, and recognizing the variety of institutional structures and focus for regional or local industry needs, that we wanted to make sure we were flexible and adaptable and didn't prescribe or over-prescribe what needed to be covered and pedagogically how it should be covered. And then finally, we'll mention briefly a goal of trying to create this as more of a living document, to keep it a living community, to not wait another 10 or 15 years and say, well, back in 2020, that might have been what they needed, but a lot has happened in the intervening time. And so we want to create a community to be able to support ongoing conversation about this. The process we used, the exploratory task force met in 2018, and then we created our complete task force, started meeting early 2019, had our first face-to-face meeting down in Cancun. For those of you that are AS members and was there, it was a nice, warm, shall we say, start to our process. And then unfortunately, shortly after the Munich ISIS meeting, that's when MaCuDE met. And we thank you for welcoming us into that conversation back in Munich. But unfortunately, shortly after that, obviously everything transitioned to a remote virtual mode, but we tried to not miss a beat and kept going. So just recently in February and March, the ACM Education Board and the AIS Council both approved and endorsed the report that we released. Just very quickly on a comparison to some previous approaches, as I had mentioned earlier, MIS 2016, while it is geared towards the graduate level, it was one of the first efforts that tried to take a look at the competencies of graduates, not just the learning modules and units that should be delivered in a course. And so in the 2020 task force, we really put much more of an effort on competencies. And so that's why we titled our report a competency model for undergraduate programs. We hope that that gives a lot more flexibility so that it doesn't fall into a prescribed series of courses. So if you take a look at that 2010 report, it identified 7 courses that, I'll use the word should, recommended, must be included in an IS program. And that wasn't to limit programs that had the ability to add electives or even additional required courses, but saying that this is a minimal approach to what should be covered as a course. What we did in our 2020 effort was to take a look at institutions to see what was being covered and how well the 2010 model was being adhered to by programs. And so you'll see when we get to our 2020 report that the enterprise architecture is one that had less of an adoption. And so we took a harder look at how that was being included in other areas or how that was being covered. And so we'll get to that in a little bit. So most of our earlier efforts being course or learning unit based, we tried to move to an outcome based. So for example, in IS accreditation under ABET, they describe a learning outcome, and that's how the students and graduates relate those skills, knowledge, behaviors. We call that dispositions, which I'll get to, so that they can carry out the needs of IS for the organizations. The competency model focuses primarily on what a graduate is able to do after completing the courses, not what they've mastered or proven that they've learned. So the Computing Curricula 2020 effort that was also just released describes competencies as the combination of knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So we can put that into a graphic format, saying that in a number of different areas in organizational needs, there are tasks that we expect our employees or our former students to be able to carry out. Those tasks require that the students have a set of knowledge that they have learned, skills that they've been able to practice or hone throughout that educational experience, and then in some way try to help them apply and understand the dispositions that reflects how they personally carry that out. So in addition to just the knowledge and the skills, dispositions brings in that there are what many of us in business schools and model curricula will say are those soft skills, a term that maybe we're trying to get away from calling it core skills or core abilities, recognizing that the student needs to be able to put those behaviors and values into practice. As a way of using terminology to help us understand the differentiation between the knowledge that they have learned, skills they practice, and the dispositions, this is a set of terms that we included in our report to try to help understand the learning, the practice, and then the abilities that students apply personally to them. To try to create a flow diagram, a map of how each of these terms are applied in our report, if you take a look at the top, and we're taking a look at an institution's information systems program, we recognize that we will have program learning outcomes, which will then be delivered by courses. The program wants to be able to deliver competency, and we'll break down the competency realms, areas, and specific competencies, but we map it into a larger realm that apply directly to the program's learning outcomes. When we then break down those realms, we say that the competencies are delivered in a set of courses. And so when we get into not prescribing specific courses, then obviously what we want to do is to be able to map where are we delivering those competencies? Where do students learn to use those skills? Directly then at a lower level, each course's learning outcomes should map to which specific competency we've identified that they should know. So this screen probably best describes our recommendation. We've identified 6 different realms of areas of knowledge and skills that students should have in any curriculum that calls itself information systems. And what we've done is to put into bold the competency realms that should be required of all IS programs. And then in italics, areas that may not be able to fit into every IS program, but ones that the task force strongly recommended and said that these are optional realms that, if possible, should be included as its own distinct competency area. And so we've been talking already about stuff like data and business analytics, artificial intelligence, and you'll notice that over under data, that is one that is in italics. Kalle had mentioned programming, and you'll notice that one thing that jumps out to a lot of people is the bolded analysis and design and application development through learning how to program. That was not included in the 2010 edition, but we heard very strongly that people wanted that as a required area. So one of the things that we want to caution people from doing is to say, okay, you've got 6 boxes, therefore that's 6 courses, or that you have these number of terms in bold, therefore those are required courses. And in reality, one or more of these might be combined into a single course, or more precisely, might even be broken up into multiple courses. I know that in some programs, systems analysis and design is a multi-course, multi-semester course development process. And so we're not describing here how an institution would put these into a curriculum flow chart describing courses. So now I'm going to turn this over to Hannu, and he's going to talk about the differences maybe with MIS 2016 and how that leads into this MaCuDE project. So Hannu.
Okay. So we have the same presentation, but perhaps it's easier if we switch the presenter. Okay, so the latter part of our presentation is more about trying to defend our IS 2020 guidelines against the digital era challenges, or at least discuss how these relate. But before going to these digital era challenges that are topic of today, let's take a very quick look at how IS 2010 is related to the MSIS 2016, or the graduate program requirements. So if you look at the MSIS 2016 identifies 4 areas as prerequisites. And if you compare these to the slide that Paul was just presenting, I think there is a similarity to the 4 pillars in the competency or the competency realms. So I think it's fair to say that these 2 guidelines are compatible. And then the similarity even increases when we look at the contents of the guidelines. So this looks like a fairly traditional view of providing the basics in the undergraduate program and then moving on to more advanced competency areas in the graduate level, perhaps placing a little bit more emphasis on managerial issues, which kind of makes sense. And I think it's easy to see that the old tradition that we have had that Heikki mentioned and Kalle also showed on a similar table. So there is a long tradition. So when I talk about the traditional model of identifying or of looking at IS education, so this is basically it. But if we then move on to the challenges that we are discussing today, and whether this traditional model can it face the digital era challenges. So I fully agree that there are lots of courses nowadays taught in business schools which could be provided by IS, but can be provided by some other discipline. And then we have these programs like digital marketing, fintech, business analytics, digital management, to mention a few, which kind of look like IS programs, but not necessarily are fully IS programs. And also, I fully agree. What is so not so evident here is the artificial intelligence likely to become much more important also in business school education. So then the question is, so does the traditional model, is it able to address these? So then I return to the basic figure, or the key figure in IS 2020 that Paul already presented. So if I then just take a look at how we identify traditionally the IS education. So we typically see them, IS education, as being somewhere between the more technical education in computing schools, and then on the other hand, the programs offered in business schools by different disciplines. And in computing schools, we would probably, the IS programs probably try to differentiate themselves from the specific programs that often exist, like the programs for data science or cybersecurity or IT or computer science or software engineering. But in business schools, we traditionally understand IS programs when we explain to the prospective students that what is the distinct value added. It's typically said that, well, you get a good business school education, a lot of good foundational individual competencies that business schools often offer. But then you get a more in-depth view on how information systems are being developed and how the technology infrastructures work and those things. And I think, well, at least on my experience, this promise still is valid, so that there is a need for graduates who have this particular type of competency profile. And as Kalle already mentioned, we in IS 2020 we are adding a little bit more technology, like secure computing and application development, IS practicum. So in some sense, if I think about the new programs, like, well, use digital marketing as an example. So it's still focused on marketing, and I think their aim is to educate marketing professionals, but to a new digital era, whereas our purpose is broader, like providing so the graduates are IS professionals with a lot of understanding on the use domain. So it looks like that this is this provides a good ground for distinguishing what are the core competencies. And then also the artificial intelligence, it's not in the required competencies at the moment, but there is definitely a possibility to provide a specialization for business schools in IS programs, looking more at analytics and artificial intelligence. So it kind of, the big picture looks quite promising. But then does this mean that everything is already solved? Well, I don't think so. So if we look at, there are two challenges. One of the challenges is that there are actually quite a few competency areas that we should cover. And I think this will be perhaps more of a problem for IS programs in business schools, because many business schools, not all, but many business schools do not provide that many credit hours or courses for the major subject. So it will be an interesting challenge in the future to start thinking about how should we actually design the curriculum in the traditional sense so that we provide sufficient coverage of all these competencies. And it would be really nice to have a workshop with business school IS program heads discussing about these topics. But then the second challenge is related to the contents of each of these competency areas. So as Kalle was kind of pointing out, and it was in the previous presentations, like even if we have a separate application, separate area for artificial intelligence, it's likely to have an impact on many of these other competency areas as well. So if artificial intelligence becomes so broadly used, it will affect probably how we teach systems analysis and design. AI has a lot of ethical and sustainability implications. Probably in business process management, we would like to address it somehow. So then the devil is kind of in the details of what exactly do we teach, what kind of competencies do we teach. And the task force used quite some time to define in a more detailed manner each of the competency areas, both the required and the elective ones. And we could easily come up with a list of 8 to 10 to 12 specific competencies that should be included in each of the area. And but if we think about the number, so when I say devil is in details, the amount of detail is actually quite large, and then the question is, if I think we try to do our best in defining competencies for each area, but even there I would say that it would be great if we could have smaller projects looking at specific competency areas. And now that I was listening to MaCuDE, I think the MaCuDE will probably provide a lot of good material to improve the competencies, the specific competencies that we are saying should be addressed under the data realm and for instance in the more specific competency areas within them. So this would be and for sure, as I said, most of the competency areas are changing. So to keep these updated would require more ongoing approach. But then even this perhaps is not enough, because this is just a list of competencies. So the teachers will next ask, well, how do we teach them? And how do, of course, very complicated questions of how do we measure the competencies. Well, we didn't go that far, but we did identify for each of the competency. So what Paul was saying, it looks nice and neat as a separate slide, but when you start thinking that there are like 100+ competencies, and then for each you start looking at the knowledge skill pairs, so and the dispositions, that's a lot of work. And once again, I think it's still, we made our best to provide a good starting point for discussion, but here as well, a group of teachers focused on certain competencies would probably be able to improve them, or at least keep them updated and refresh as needed. So this was I was also kind of saying that we are very proud of the work that we have done, and I think IS 2020 does provide good perhaps a little bit traditional, but still quite precise view on what competencies the IS graduates should have. But for sure, we have also been looking at how we acknowledge the problems of updating the guidelines. So there are lots of others, so it's not only our task force, but many others feel that the IS programs probably should collaborate more in order to define what these capabilities are and set how to turn the competencies into a curriculum. And then we have been looking at different approaches and looking at open source software communities and some other communities and how they deal with the problem, and trying to find ways to organize this work so that those who participate also, while contributing to the general goals, they also feel that they would get something for their own curriculum planning efforts. So these are our initial ideas, and as a task force, we were of course very much committed to, or the primary goal was to make the guideline report, to finish it and get it accepted. But of course we are, and this is still a little bit work in progress, but we are very much looking forward to your feedback, both on the competency model that we are providing, but also ideas for this more continuous approach. And so I guess it's time to move on to the discussion part. And but if you want to provide feedback after the webinar, so that we have this is2020.org website, and there are also our emails. So if you want to email us and provide feedback, that is also very much welcomed.
Great. Thank you very much, Hannu and Paul. And now it is time for us to move to the segment of the session where the goal is really to give all of you who have joined us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it might be for you, to contribute your ideas, your thoughts, your questions also. If you have questions regarding any of this, it is your time now. We will be following the Q&A, answering questions from there. You can use, of course, the chat function too. And we have prepared a few questions that we will, at this point, present to you as kind of discussion starters. But the floor is really open. We welcome viewpoints regarding any of this. This is actually an excellent opportunity for you to bring ideas forward, because there are two distinctive but collaborating projects that both have close links to communities, both the computing community and the business school community, also at the broader level. And so good way to get ideas forward, and then we can test them in different contexts and really try to get to some of the core questions, such as these. And let me just share my screen here. So here, the first question I think we can ask is the question, so are there key perspectives that we have not addressed today at all? Just big picture, high level questions where you feel that this is really, really important for the information systems community as a whole, information systems education, whatever your perspective might be, where you're coming from, but are there the high-level questions that require attention and that we just have not addressed at all? And that's linked to the second point here, the question about the unique value proposition of IS programs and the IS discipline as a whole in the business school context, but also, and not only business school context, but also in the many other areas that the IS discipline can serve. One of the key findings of and key themes in IS 2010, MSIS 2016, now IS 2020 is the recognition that there are many other domains that IS as a discipline can serve. It's not only linked to the business school community. So those first two questions there are really a great, I think, starting point for this. But then there are many other aspects. And Paul, let me ask you first, do you have any other big picture questions that you would like to bring in as discussion starters?
No, I think that's a good start, and but because I do want to give everybody time to get to the remaining questions. I'll just add to this so that it doesn't get lost if there are more chat questions proposed, but maybe nuancing this down a little bit on your second question, what will be the unique value proposition of IS programs? Matti Rossi asked, I think, an implication of that question. And he says, how can we avoid the fragmentation so that there's not going to be 5 different analytics programs in all the different disciplines in a business school? Paraphrasing his question there. And I think maybe that is the value proposition that IS programs can offer is, if you go back a few decades when computing tools, microcomputer tools first came out, every discipline thought they had to teach how to apply spreadsheets to accounting or spreadsheets to marketing or whatever the case was. And we can use that experience to let those who can focus in on the role of computing technologies and information systems to not just analytics programs, but Kalle had mentioned cybersecurity. So the whole issue of information assurance that, say, an accounting program might have, what role can information systems offer in providing some of that? And so I think those are intertwined questions.
Can I add to this a bit? Just an observation. Sure. This is a very hard thing, as you know, especially in business schools, because politics always come down to the play and the fight for the resources and visibility, and you cannot avoid that. There's and the context across different schools is very different. In some schools, IS departments are pretty strong; others they are probably less strong, and there are different drivers. In some schools, marketing or finance or accounting runs the show, so to speak. So these are the unique issues which you cannot avoid. But I would come back to the point which I made in the sort of what is the unique in the IS. I think that probably IS faculty could play a certain type of leading role in trying to in being able to provide to the deans and also possibly to the other departments and disciplines that there's a need for to have a much more holistic view on this whole thing. And build like a package or a portfolio of courses where some courses only fit to specific functionalities, but overall they will capture the whole area, which is the end-to-end aspect of it. So the building, maintenance, and use of these types of applications. Because in the future, if you think of organizational functions, organizations need to have all these competencies somehow, and they have to be orchestrated. So I can see here that IS departments or faculty can really offer a intellectually leading role if they sort of pick up the so to speak, the torch and run with it. But it depends on the politics.
Thank you, Kalle. Let me, yes, please.
Perhaps I could just add that I think there is like all technology, there's always the user perspective,
Yes.
like in analytics, and then the developer perspective. And I don't know how easy it is for us to control. Of course, as said, it's probably an issue that deans will decide at the end. But I think MaCuDE has an excellent opportunity in this regard to clarify the different aspects.
Yes, I think that there is a little bit more legitimacy even to go to the deans and say, look, this important project is run by AACSB and they are heeding to this issue. So we should do something about it. And here is some way of sort of getting everybody on this around the same table and discuss this. What are we going to do as a whole?
So let me present a dilemma that I have personally faced at numerous times, and I'm wondering, and this is both for the panelists and everybody who is present today. So let's imagine a scenario where a dean or a provost or even a president of a university says that it's critically important that every single student at our university is well versed in AI, in machine learning, in advanced analytics, in blockchain, in robotics, robotic process automation, and you list, maybe add a few more things to the list. And by the way, this should all be achieved in a single course. Let's say there's maybe course level space real estate for that learning experience. What do you do in that context where you know that any real understanding of and particularly organizational applications of these technologies require much more than just that survey level review of what these terms mean? So I would add that to the list of questions, that how do we set realistic expectations? What can be achieved?
So if you put it in some way, how to move from the fat to the substance, add real substance to it.
Yeah, and it also is a question about the role of the intro courses and what can be achieved in them. Maybe ask Hannu and Paul about that. So in IS 2020, what was your thinking regarding the intro course and its role in the curriculum?
Hannu, do you want to start with that, or if not?
Well, we have the foundations as a competency area, but that as such is not the core course or the first course. So the foundations are probably the competency improves during the program, and then in particular in the end with the highest practicum and those things. So but the feedback that we did receive in panel discussions was that this learning to learn is quite significant. So that there will always be new technologies coming, and then we added this emerging technologies course, which perhaps in some ways is something that the business disciplines perhaps are expecting from us, that there would be this one course addressing all these technologies and understanding their implications.
Yeah, I'll add. Well, I'm sorry, Hannu. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please, Paul, continue. I think
Yeah,
I said
I'll add to what Hannu was saying about it being a foundations course in which they learn to then learn as they progress through their curriculum. And so if you take a look at our recommendation on that foundations course, maybe the heavier statement is what you don't see as opposed to what we've included. So what's included there are the foundations of the role of information systems and the expectations or needs of an organization that they should supply. And what you don't see are is the assumption that that one single foundation course provides all the tools and skills that let's say a business major of any discipline would need. And that's where they'll go to learn their technology or computing skills. And then the discipline can use those skills to apply, to marketing, finance, accounting, whatever it is. And so what you don't see is that is not the purpose of the foundations course. It's to lay a strong ground foundation on how those needs can be developed. And so I hope that people will take a look at our recommendations and maybe move away from the idea that there is a finite, limited set of technical abilities that a broad set of disciplines should walk away with, that it's much broader than that.
Can I have two questions of the curriculum, two issues? The first one is that most of these curriculum requirements are written from the viewpoint of the majors. Many of these courses also may have a significant role as required courses in other disciplines or as part of the minors.
Right.
So are these discussed as, and this is important, relates back to the discussion which I had before. What is the role of the IS discipline in providing value-added courses or content for the other disciplines, especially given this increased need or understanding for the digital aspects, and which one example is the sort of big data and AI type of stuff? That's my first comment. Did you have any discussion of that? And I think that
we did, and that's
value from this program. If there's some sort of package and saying that if you are a certain competency, marketing or operations people, here's those competencies. Here are the possible types of courses which you take.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And what we, while we didn't specifically say here is what should be covered as the single service course to the other disciplines, we did identify and note that many institutions will require that foundations course for all the disciplines. We also recognize that there is a subset of the IS major that could be delivered as a minor. And so we had a very short segment, not as much as the IS 2010 report did, but recognize that there is a subset that would be delivered for folks that might want to, let's say, get a finance major with an information systems minor and the role that information systems can play. But as far as to answer your question, Kalle, kind of going back and maybe restating what I had said earlier, was that assuming that the foundations competency area that we put in as a recommended area for IS programs would normally serve as that, what I'll call service course to the other disciplines. But it will cause a discussion, I hope, of what those expectations are across a complete institution, because if it's not a tools course, way back, if you go back to previous model curricula, there was an IS 0, which really was the personal productivity tools, the ability to use, let's say, office tools and navigate the internet. And that was a required course in many programs. And what that led to was, well, if we only get one service course to provide everybody, it kind of slipped into that foundations course being a tools course. And so what we have described as the competencies required for foundations really is that broader need of an organization on how information systems provide all of the functional areas that the other disciplines would need. We did not go into how other disciplines would make use of that course. We didn't put that in our peer review of our scope to recommend, hey, marketing programs, here how you can use these foundational elements in your e-commerce discussions, or accounting, here's how you can use these in your information assurance part of your program. But certainly those are conversations that I would hope all the disciplines would have.
Yes, and
Perhaps I could add a little bit, so that one of the difficulties in addressing this issue in IS 2020 was that we were explicitly addressing different educational contexts. So the minor for for computer science majors or data scientists majors would probably be different from a minor offered for business disciplines. And then there are the information schools, which is the third kind of educational context. There are many others, but these were the three ones. So if they are looking at information behavior and that sort of, so the minor is offered to different programs, and then it's a little bit school specific what the IS minor would be in different contexts.
Thank you, Hannu and Paul. Kalle, I think you had a second question.
Yes, this is more detailed and specific, but when I look at the especially the development part of the pillar of the curriculum, it appears to be mainly focused on, which I would call sort of software delivery, sort of implement a certain type of software functions, either build yourself or implement whatever is available through some type of COTS type of availability, or now even from the cloud, some type of service. But if you look at the sort of big data or machine learning types of projects, these are somewhat different. They don't have clear start and end dates. They are nearly like, they're like quality teams in the sense that once you establish them, you run them for a relatively long period. They don't have a clear functional requirements. They have more like a discovery role. And I think there's still a role for IS professionals to act in these types of settings. So did you ever sort of look at and think about these types of new types of, I would say, tasks in which the IS professionals might be operating?
I think the way, yeah.
Go ahead, Hannu. No, Hannu,
Go ahead, Hannu.
Okay, so I think we approached them in a somewhat traditional way, these competency areas. So if you look at the competency areas, they don't necessarily address that much new themes. So this is definitely an area where I see a lot of, or what I was mentioning, that we should really go more deeper in the competency areas to look. We did have those discussions, but I think at the end of the day, the way they are now described is somewhat traditional. So there would be a room for improvement, I think, or updating.
Yeah, no, I agree. Our discussions went along the line of how tightly to describe development and programming. So we had conversations about low code or no code ability to deliver the kind of applications you were asking about, Kalle, and certainly there will be that need. We discussed whether to include that in the competencies for application development and programming, and we ended up on the side of not including it there so that it wouldn't dilute or maybe misdirect what we were hearing clearly that people wanted from an IS program, and that was the ability to actually do traditional coding that Hannu was talking about, which means there certainly is room in a number of the different areas to talk about those fundamental technology. I won't call them information system solutions, but technology solutions that we did include in some of the other competency areas.
Right. As you may know, there is some great history in IS actually for similar types of tasks and roles. It goes back to the decision support systems, chauffeur-driven development, executive information systems. And in many ways, I think that these big data and analytics matching type of settings are very similar to those types of settings, which were actually directed also for decision making and either sort of middle managers or top management roles. Of course, now the difference is that many times these may be involved service development or even product integration or new type of services. If you look at Internet of Things type of things and many others.
Very, very true. We have only a few minutes remaining before 11:30. I wanted to first of all, at this point, recognize a couple of questions and that were asked and answered in the Q&A, but really good points that you raised. Mike Mitri talked about the importance of non-business contexts for information systems education. And the question was there that whether or not there are efforts such as MaCuDE in other domains. At least I am not aware of any such effort, but I certainly personally hope that moving forward, the information systems community can, in the same way we are recognized as an integral part of the business school community in the AACSB project and the MaCuDE initiative, that we would find similar type of role within other domains, whether it's healthcare, it might be legal informatics, it might be government public policy systems and such. So I think there are great opportunities for the discipline from that perspective. And one issue we haven't talked about much this today is the question about kind of the tension, the dynamic between information systems as a discipline and then data science, analytics, and all the other variants of that same set of themes, where there's great overlap, highly intensive activity in the analytics space by information systems departments, but still clearly different program types. And that's something that Stefan Kangen recognized and offered an interesting survey as a result. And also, thank you also for the sharing the BTM learning outcomes in Canada, that document. I think an important point to make here is that both of these projects are really interested in global efforts of different types that might have used these same types of concepts. And if, for example, you are aware of initiatives that share similar types of goals and themes, and you don't see them here, please share them with us. We would love to learn and continue to incorporate them into the initiatives. So thank you for all the questions and comments you have presented. And now I will hand it over to Kalle to wrap our session up and say a few words about the next steps. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Well, I will not use any slides anymore. I can see clearly that they were incomprehensible. I'm sorry about it. There are some technical glitches currently in the software, and we couldn't do that during the presentation. Just a couple of observations. When it comes to this MaCuDE project, we are going to run another webinar later this spring, towards the end of May, where we will be reporting interim reports from the industry analysis and industry reviews, and get feedback on those as build up this understanding of these competencies. And we will be also, if you want to provide additional comments about whatever you received, either from the MaCuDE, you wanted the report or something else, or the curriculum, and you can send to any of us those requests. We will be addressing those and trying to integrate them into both of these are living documents. And we will be also interacting with the community later on in AIS conferences, probably at the AMSIS and later in the ISIS, where we will be reporting sort of fuller emerging understanding of the requirements. And I'm sure when we have the requirements with regard to the AIS, with regard to the big data analytics and other parts, we will come back actually with the curriculum committee and probably have another sort of, whether in this form or other form, which will be much more focused on just on those requirements. So this is currently the plan, how we move ahead. And to be honest, we were very positively surprised of the attention, the number of people who have attended this event. And also we hope that this has served the purpose of increasing awareness of these activities and also creating buzz and discussion about these important issues. I think that at least myself and Heikki, and I think that Paul and Hannu will also share this concern, is that I think we are at the edge of some sort of important change in this field, and we have to be very proactive on this. That the effects of digital technologies are cutting across all the educational domains, and it's not only about the delivery, it's also about the content and how to respond to those needs. This community basically is the master of its fate. We have to be proactive and try to shape the direction and demonstrate the value which we can provide, which is, as we know from the past, has not always been easy. We are the generalists, and it's harder to be generalist than specialist and claim that we add value, and we don't have the same historical weight as, for example, marketing or accounting has, especially in the business area. And I know there are similar issues in computing fields. I was in computer science departments many years, and I felt always that we were the small minority, although important ones. We brought the money and the others did the theory. That was the experience. So thank you for all of you for attending this event, and we look forward to hearing from you in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalle. And let me also add thanks to Brooke Pritchett for her production help for this event. Thank you, Brooke, so much for everything you have done for this. Many thanks, and all the best to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.